Have you ever had to reinvent yourself? Have you ever wanted to just take a leap of faith and fully put your trust in yourself and the universe? Today's guest is a brilliant example of the beauty that can come to your life when you do just that. Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Creative with Lauren LoGrasso. I'm Lauren LoGrasso. I'm a Webby Award-winning podcast host and producer, singer-songwriter, public speaker, and creative coach. And this show is meant to give you tools to love, trust, and know yourself enough to claim your right to creativity and pursue whatever it is that's on your heart. Today, I am re-airing one of the really first episodes I did. It was about 5 years ago, over that now, with an incredible woman named Berner. Hannah is a podcast host, comedian, personality, businesswoman, badass, and she has had an unbelievable career journey since the last time she was on the show. She's had what I would call a meteoric rise, and she was already doing great when she came on the show, but since then she's had a Netflix special. I wanted to re-air the show because I saw that next week she's going to be on The Tonight Show. And while she has been rising and doing these amazing things in the comedy and podcasting world, she also has experienced hardship. She parted ways with Summer House, which you'll hear her mention on the show today. And she had a lot of adversity come at her online and just like some tough moments. I think she described it, I remember hearing her on a podcast, describing it as a dark night of the soul. And from that, she emerged this incredible phoenix. But Hannah's such a warm, kind person and somebody who is really a great example for me and for all of us on how to fully believe in ourselves, put our full heart into our work, and just trust your instinct and go. Her career is so inspiring to me. I think it's cool to hear this story and then look at what she's done in the past 5 years and then ask, what could I do? What could this mean for me? I want you to hear it. And in the conversation, we talk about all kinds of amazing things, how she reinvented herself after tennis, what it felt like at the very beginning of her career. And now to see that she's on this Netflix special is just unbelievable. So without further ado, check out my interview that originally aired back in 2019 with the amazing Berner. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
I'm more excited than when I interviewed DJ Khaled.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
No, way more excited because you're my friend. I feel as if I know you already.
Also, I'm not going to lie. I don't listen to most podcasts I go on, and I listen to yours.
Aww.
I listened to a couple episodes.
Thank you for doing that.
I'm just saying.
I appreciate it.
I'm not trying to suck up. I'm just speaking the truth.
No, I appreciate your honesty. I mean, you're always honest. And I feel aligned with you for so many reasons. One, we are both Italian.
Yes.
And we both went to college in the Midwest. I grew up there too, but I know you went to University of Wisconsin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we both got inspired to get into audio by Taylor Strecker.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I started working at Sirius because of her. I listened to her show. I'm like, if she could do it, maybe I could do it too.
That's crazy. Taylor you'll meet people in your life that you think are just, random people that you're going to meet. And then you realize that they're going to connect you to so many things.
Yeah.
You never know who that person's going to be, but it's that's why you have to be open to the connections around you.
Very true. And she has an incredible community.
Oh,
and that's how I found you.
Yeah. The joke with Taylor was that their community at first hated me because I ate a scone.
Yeah. Into the mic.
And I don't even know how much it was actually into the mic, but it became a bigger joke than it was. And they could have immediately rejected me, and they kind of did, but Taylor gave me another chance, and I kind of spun it hey guys, I know we experienced Scone Gate together. So I had to make fun of myself, but it was cool that Taylor and I have been through, it hasn't been perfect, and she still gave me a chance.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
But that's what creativity is. It's never perfect.
No, it is. And it's committing to that imperfection. But the other thing is that you had to really reinvent yourself in your early 20s. You had this track you thought you were going to be on. You went toward tennis your whole life. I mean, did you say you started doing it when you were 12?
I started playing tennis when I was 3 or 4.
Okay.
And by 8, I had a real coach.
Okay.
And then by 11 or 12, I was ranked nationally, which is insane because now that I'm 27, being 12, I was a fetus. A literal, I'll see 12-year-olds nowadays and I'm how was I traveling, putting pressure on myself to win? I mean, some girls when they're 12 right now have full face of makeup, but that's a whole other issue. But it's crazy, the steps in your life. And at that time, tennis was everything to me. And I would argue let's get immediately deep. When I was 10 years old, I experienced 9/11 in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
So the world was like kind of a scary place to me. 10 is when you first realize like, oh, life is a thing. You're not just like floating around waiting for your parents. You're like,
Right.
oh, I'm a human in this world that's scary. And I think I got addicted to tennis because I could control it. Like if I won, people would get happy. I could practice every day. I was getting positive attention from it. And I didn't have to deal with like the issues of life. I just had to focus on tennis and people were happy. But over time, like I put way too much pressure on my tennis to make me happy. And I also was a kid who like loved acting. I loved art. I was like that kid, if you gave me like an easel to paint on, you wouldn't hear from me for 5 hours because I'd get so into my art. But I really suppressed that side to me for a long time. People would argue that I was a creative player. If anyone knows tennis, there's no rules of where you hit the ball and how you hit the ball. So I would like kind of do things out of the box. I would slice, I would hit top spin. I was kind of wild and coaches didn't always like it. And I never like fully realized that I didn't really accept myself in the tennis community. I never really felt like I belonged. I always felt like I was sillier and more distracted, even though I loved it and was more committed than anyone. But like just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's the right thing for you to do. Which is so weird to say. Because everyone's like, well, what are you good at? Isn't that what adults say when you're young? What are you good at? But it doesn't really matter what you're good at. It's what creates a fire inside you.
So how did you realize that disconnect between I'm good at this, but it doesn't really bring me joy?
With sports, there's this whole energy of like, it's about the hustle, the grind, like you got to be in pain. So like I didn't understand that I wasn't happy. I thought this is what you have to do to be a professional athlete. And like my family loves sports, so I was convinced that like happiness came from playing a game for a living. Like you don't want to be sitting at a desk, you want to be playing a game and getting paid.
Which you kind of are doing now.
Well, it really does. And tennis, like, I love the attention, which I think is okay. There's some people in this world that don't like attention. Some people do. It doesn't make you an asshole. But I always had bad anxiety, but I thought it was just because I was under, like, so much pressure with, like, sponsorships, my parents. And then I went to college. I got a full scholarship. And then I was like, you know what? I'm sick of torturing myself. I'm sick of it. And then I was lost for a good 4 years.
Yeah. How did you deal with that discomfort? Because you left without having a net to fall into. You're like, well, this doesn't make me passionate, but I don't know what my passion is.
I was 22. A lot of my friends were going pro, which was my dream. I played a little professionally at 16, but I just was like, look, competing every weekend, I don't want that to be my life anymore. It didn't make me happy, but it took so long to realize it didn't make me happy. Because winning made me happy. But towards the end, it was more like losing made me depressed and winning, I was numb. Like if I won, I would be like, thank God. And if I lost, I'd be like, I hate myself. I'm not worthy. I wasn't taking care of myself because I was pissed at myself all the time or feeling guilty for losing. And like, that's just all I knew. So I didn't know I had bad anxiety or depression. It was just my grind. And then when you win, people treat you like you're so great. So you assume that everything in your life is perfect when you win.
So your whole self-worth was tied up in this entity and you walked away from the entity on purpose. Mm-hmm. How did you get the courage to do that?
I think that I knew deep down. I was very bad at listening to my inner voice because I had so many voices. Not psychopathic voices, but like
like your parents, your tennis coaches,
just telling me what to do. And I would always be like, "You want me to jump? How high?" And that's what people wanted you to be coachable. That was like the thing to be. I realized I hate being put in a box, and it was like insane for someone like me to be doing that. But I learned that there was a little voice that was like, do you remember when you were younger and you loved acting or you like loved doing projects? Like I really loved it. And I was like, I feel like unlike some of these other players, I have another side to me that I haven't really delved into. And my senior year of college, I started to do some sports broadcasting because like my final year to keep my scholarship, you have to work. And some people would work at the library or work at the cafe. And I was like, can I work in the communications department? And I started doing like the basketball games and writing highlight reels because I do know sports, but I got to add some like entertainment performativeness into it. And I learned how to edit. That's where I learned how to edit. And then after college, I remember talking to my mom and being like, I want to do like my own like host series thing. Like I love interviewing. I always loved interviewing people. Apparently when I was 6 years old, I wanted to like write my own newspaper, and I'd go around with my pad and paper, and like there was like a waiter, and I wanted to interview him of why he wanted to be a waiter. And the dude was like, I don't want to be a waiter. And I like couldn't
Tell me about your
comprehend
dreams.
it.
Come on.
But I always was fascinated with learning about people and talking to people. And I loved putting myself out there and performing. But even though that little voice happened, I left tennis, but then I was back in sales, which is pretty much like my dad loved tennis, my dad loved sales. So I just was like back on that same place of like competition, and I was selling, I was making a lot of money. But again, in this like competitive world of like, if you make a sale, you're happy. If not, you're miserable. And I'm like, I found myself in the same place as tennis because I didn't listen to that voice that like was actually so right. I thought it was a crazy voice. I thought it was like, okay, calm down, crazy. So then I quit sales and I went to marketing, which turns out was even more boring because there wasn't even like a high or a low to it. Everyone needs to have a dark moment. I love when my friends have dark moments, like moments that they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, you're here. This is when a change happens. I was in Las Vegas at I was working marketing for a t-shirt company. And like the owner of the company didn't give me any creative freedom. Like I would send him ideas and he'd be like, no. And I'd be like,
He's like overachieving, and he's like, shut up.
He literally was like, just answer customer service emails. And I was like, why? Why do I hate this? So I was in Las Vegas for a trade show, and it was like 1 a.m. and I was just putting in orders with my friend who worked there. And I was looking at old YouTube videos of me at Wisconsin doing sports broadcasting. And I was like, this is what I need to do. And I literally just had the word video in my head and started manifesting it. Just video. I didn't know where or how, but I just was like, I need to be involved with video. So I quit my job because I got a 1-month opportunity to like work as a brand ambassador for this fashion line. They paid me like $4,000 that month. And I was like, I'll do that. I have some savings, but at least I had something set up. And in that month, I started applying to free internships. I'm 25, and my friends are kind of like a little judgy at this point. They're like, what's Hannah doing? Especially ones that are like already in finance and stuff. But I had this like long-term vision, and I realized like the longer I didn't go towards where my heart was, another day goes by that I'm not being authentic to myself. So I got a free internship at this sports college website where I was doing video production, but I really
She's putting it in quotes, just so you
know.
I
literally was giving them like stats for their videos. I wasn't touching the editing tools or anything. But then, if anyone watches Summer House, there's this guy, Jordan Vroy, on the show. He's pretty iconic character right now, some would say. Yeah. So anyway, but he's a special guy in my life because we had done a tennis photo shoot together. And I had mentioned to him I want to do video.
Now, was this tennis photo shoot back when you were doing tennis, or at that point when you're 25?
This was when I was like 24, 25, because I lost my like excitement to work out. It was almost depressing for me to work out because I'm like, I'm not training to win anything.
And you might have associated it with pain too.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would go to the gym after tennis and like I would just cry and have to go back to my apartment.
Yeah.
Like it was a really dark, lost time. But I never felt like completely lost. I knew I was like in a searching mode. So I told Jordan I want to be in video. And this mofo follows up with me randomly through LinkedIn and goes, hey, Betches is looking for a video producer with 5 years experience. And I go, I have literally 4 months experience and I'm doing a free internship right now. He goes, just send them a funny video, self-tape with your phone. So I made a video called How a Betch Goes to the Gym. And just between me and you, I followed them, but I didn't like understand their brand. But I kind of just like used my humor. I could tell what the Betchy vibe was. And they loved my video and they called me in and they were like, you literally have no experience. But I came in with like 30 video ideas and I was like, well, do you want me to do these? And they were like, yes. So I basically was like, first of all, I don't believe in taking jobs that you're qualified for. Second of all, when you're not qualified, they can't say no to ideas. Like come in with if it's for marketing, a marketing plan. Come in with like how you'd actually do it. So because they're not liking you for your resume. They're going to like you for what kind of action you can do. So I started with them for $300 a week. and I was making graphic videos for them, which is where I kind of learned, because they didn't want any faces in the videos.
So how did you do that?
So I made graphic videos based on like their articles, and I learned their humor, and I actually really started to learn my own humor voice of like how to make written jokes by like making these 1-minute videos about like I did like the top 10 ugly hot guys in Hollywood, or like I would do, 4 reasons why you should. It was very just like silly, fun list stuff. So I loved journalism and I loved writing, and I was really getting to know their voice. And then one day they were like, you need to start doing like SNL type stuff. Like, we want to do that. And I'm like, okay. I literally had my own DSLR camera and my mom, and we like tried to shoot a video, and they were like, this is terrible. I didn't take it at all as like, it didn't feel like losses in tennis. It seemed more like a boot camp. I called it Betches Boot Camp, where they were just like, kind of like teaching me what they wanted. And I was just saw everything as a learning experience. That's important with like creative criticism, to like not take things to ego.
But if you are a person who's super sensitive or even ego driven, what's your advice on how to get to the headspace you're in? Because you had already had that kind of like brutality put upon you as a child. So you had that foundation. Yeah. But for someone who doesn't, like,
I'm highly sensitive.
Yeah. I grew up being like, I'm sensitive.
I think because I went into the industry being without an ego. Like,
yeah.
And without expectation,
maybe,
without
and because you didn't have any attachment to it.
Yes. And I'm going to say, fast forward to like 2 years later, when I would get certain feedback that I disagreed with, sometimes you have to just own it and be like, they think differently than me, and that's okay, because I know my shit was funny.
Okay.
Because funny is so subjective, and I've had people who will be like, that's not funny, but then I'll send it to, if you send something to 10 people, 2 might think it sucks, 8 people think it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And you have to understand that, and you have to understand, like, it's like people's opinions on you in general. It's coming from their own life experiences. But I really think like having confidence in your shit, because if you're too influenced by other people's opinions of your work, what is your work? Just other people's opinions that you change for? I mean, that's what I think makes my humor work, is because I'm not trying to be what like stereotypically is funny or what you see out there.
It's so unique.
Thank you. It's more like people are like, how do you make it, or how do you go viral? It's by being authentically yourself, because people, I think, even will see my tweets, and even though they never heard me speak, they know it's from my voice. And that's what makes things interesting. Like, there's so many tweets out there that I feel like people are just trying to be like a cookie cutter of what funny is. And it's like, no, your own unique voice is so much funnier and weird. Like, finding your weirdness will make you go viral or make you be successful in every creative field. Also with creativity, you have to live life. Like, you can't just sit at home in your apartment, like, trying really hard to think of funny shit. You have to live. And for example, I was on a flag football league, which was a terrible idea. I like almost got injured every time, and no one passed the ball to me, and I would get pissed after every game. And there were no cute guys on it, so like wasn't worth it. But one guy was a wedding videographer, and I was like, hey, can you shoot a 1-minute video for me? And he's like, yeah. I paid him $50. And we shot a video called When Bae FaceTimes You. This is the first video I ever did for Betches that I was in. And it's like your crush calls you and you have your headphones in and you go, hey, and you're no makeup. You look like you just woke up from a nap in pajamas. And you're like, one sec, I can't find my headphones, even though the headphones are there. So then you leave, and it was like this quick cut up of me like putting on highlighter and makeup and curling my hair and putting on lipstick and then getting a ring light and putting it there and then being like, hey, babe, what's up? So it hits 1 million views.
Wow.
And they're like, can you do this 3 times a week? Did I think I could? Probably not. But I literally just said yes, got back to the drawing board, and the rest is kind of history. For the next 2 years, I built a video team of like 4 people around me, and we would make at least like 2 to 3 videos a week. We started getting brands involved, and they would charge them like a shit ton of money because they had 6 million followers for me to do branded videos with Dunkin' Donuts and 3 Olives and Netflix. And it was just like the most incredible experience. And then, nothing stays the same, obviously. I'm giving you my whole life story.
I love it. Please keep going.
You're taking it all in. Then I got a call from Bravo because I was...
And what month are we in right now? What month,
what
year?
We're in, I'm going to say, May of 2018.
Okay.
So they're basically like, hey, we know you know the cast. We're looking for like some new cast members for Summer House. And I was kind of like, whatever. It's a cool platform. I love Bravo. And I love going to the Hamptons, growing up in the city as a New Yorker, native New Yorker. Then like 8 interviews later, they said, I'm doing it. And then like next thing you know, shit got more complicated. I mean, I had my dream job at Betches. I was making videos to make people laugh. That's all I wanted to do. And it was coming really easily to me. And I also was, I was dating a stand-up comedian who was like very successful. And he gave me so much confidence. He didn't know it. But because he had intimacy issues, but all we would do is just like, instead of being in love, was like joke together and try to make each other laugh. And he was like hysterical. And I'd also see how his brain worked. I was fascinated with his brain. He was a comedic genius. And also I'd see him prepare for shows. I'd see him practice for shows. And I think subconsciously I was just taking it all in. And I just felt like I belong in this world. Like, not that I wanted to be a stand-up necessarily, but I was like,
you're a performer.
And I felt connected to him. I guess it wasn't in the love way that I thought it was. Like, I thought he was my person for a second. And then I was like, no, I think creatively I'm just really inspired by you.
Yeah, I think he was maybe the catalyst that allowed you to open up your life and your brain to this possibility that you've wanted since you were a little girl.
Oh, yeah.
And you've been hiding away from it. Because I remember I listened to your podcast religiously.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point you said on it, well, when I started doing video producing, I thought I need to be a producer because I shouldn't be in the spotlight. Maybe I don't deserve to be in the spotlight. I should just produce. And so I think maybe by seeing him and like through osmosis, you kind of soaked in that performer lifestyle.
Through the sex. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it was through the cum. No.
It was like Space Jam.
Yeah.
I was like taking his talent.
Exactly. Well, they do say that women absorb energy when we have sex.
Oh.
Yeah. We take it, except if you're on your period. I just found this out.
Oh.
Yeah. Breaking.
He actually caused a lot of anxiety in me too, because I realized that I was with him because I kind of felt alive for the first time since tennis. Like, he was like successful, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm around talent again who were like admired, and I felt like special. And then when I realized he was wrong for me, I started having an anxiety attack. And I think it's because deep down I was worried that like I would lose that like feeling of like talent again, of like being involved in something big and cool and entrepreneurial. And then I realized like it was inside me the whole time. I didn't need a man. I didn't need like an opportunity like that. And it really, I think for any creatives, like, it's inside of you. It's not through like tons of workshops or like tons of crystals. Like, obviously those things help, but like it's there. You just have to get all the other voices out of the way to hear like what you authentically want to do.
I want to get back to your path, but I think this is like an important little side street to go on. So fear is a huge thing that I talk about on the show, and something that I think a lot of listeners, I myself, am dealing with and working through. It's really crippled me in the past. And so in order to go toward what you're doing now, you overcame a shit ton of fear of yourself, really.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's in that situation where they hear the voice, they've got that gut feeling, they know what they're supposed to be doing, but they're crippled by fear, what's your advice to them?
I think that you have to understand the why, because the voices that are telling you to be scared, they're not you. They're like a annoying roommate, and you can't align with them. Like, they're your anxiety. That's what I first learned, is when you're hearing these fear, scare voices, don't identify with them. Be like, okay, this is my anxiety, and then try to understand why. If I was younger and I was getting these anxiety thoughts, I used to identify with them with tennis, but instead I'd be like, okay, you're getting anxiety right now because you feel pressure, because your parents are paying a lot of money for your tennis. And then you like disassociate. It doesn't become just like, I'm a scared person. Like, I'm scared. No, you're good, but you have some thoughts that are scaring you right now that you actually can choose to not identify with. And I do think that like, in life, some things don't work out because it's not your path, but sometimes your brain's just playing tricks on you. And to be honest, I think tennis, my brain was playing tricks on me, but I also like wasn't enjoying it. So I wasn't putting in the effort to like really dig deep of like why I was struggling. Instead, I just was like a scared person.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there are a lot of other people's voices in your head the whole time, too.
And when you're young, you get easily influenced.
Yeah. And even at this age, it's like, like you were saying, if you ask too many people for their advice about your life, you start to forget what your own voice sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, 100%. And once you're aligned with your voice, your mind becomes like a happy home.
Aww.
It becomes like a place where, like, for example, I could overthink like coming here and being really nervous about how this could go. This could go a million ways. We could end, getting in a huge fight and strangling each other.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's literally, and most podcasts I do end that way.
Yeah.
No, but it's more like understanding like, no, your head is a happy place and you can manifest your future of what you want. Like, really, your thoughts create energies that affect everyone around you. And I think the craziest thing about my path is that once I started being in front of the camera, my heart felt so calm. I did my first live comedy show last week at Caroline's.
I know, on Broadway.
On Broadway. I did my first joke and my heart was beating really fast. And then like people laughed. And I'm telling you, my heart dropped to the pace of like me getting coffee with a friend the rest of the time. And I cried to my mom after because I was like, in tennis, the girls would talk and they'd be like, yeah, I get nervous. But then once I get on the court, I'm fine. I would never be fine. I'd get in the court and I'd always be in my head and I'd always be fucked up and I'd win a lot because I was talented. But I was like, this shouldn't be it shouldn't be this hard. And sometimes it's your body just telling you like, hey, this isn't actually where it's like a fish out of water. Like, they'll flop around, but they really just want to swim. I don't know what that metaphor is.
No, it's true because you're not putting yourself where you belong.
Mm-hmm.
And you finally, I mean, there's a difference between nerves and crippling fear.
And
you were having the crippling fear and the anxiety with tennis, but this was like you were nervous, excited, and they're right next to each other on the emotional scale. And you got out on the stage and you're like, oh, this is my home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's also like in relationships. I haven't found the right thing yet, but I feel like with the right guy and the right friends, you feel like you're at home with them and you get excited, but you don't get like a crippling, crazy vibe. Like, when your friend's dating someone new and she's like obsessing of when he's texting her and you're like, I don't think this is right. Yeah. I think the right guy makes you feel at home, but you still have that excitement to be with him, but you're not like, it's not like a flame that's like burning your house down.
Right. It's not that like out of control love feeling, which can be really satisfying, but it's not sustainable.
Exactly. Like that fire will burn your house down. You want like a candlelit,
just
romantic dinner, subtle. But these are all just like being able to identify how you feel. And I think tennis also as an athlete, you're taught to numb how you feel. Like a coach is like, you ready? And you just have to say yes. Or like, you nervous? Nope. You sore? Nope. Okay, get out there. Let's go.
You're so vulnerable now, though. So how did you turn that part of your brain off and like start taking off that armor you'd built up since you were literally 3 years old to do what you do now?
I feel like I realized that because I survived, I was meant to talk about it. I think that a lot of obstacles we face, instead of getting in your head about it, being more like, oh, this is going to be so cool for my story one day. You see people like waitressing all the time, like, oh, I don't want to keep waitressing. And I'm like, but imagine when you make it, being able to say like you waitressed for 7 years before like you got on Netflix. Like that's so true. That's like, it's part of your story. It's part of the grind. And that's, I think, my athletic side for me of being like, yeah, I used to run a mile every morning at 5 a.m. Like, that's insane. But it's like, all these things we go through are part of our story. And I think I realized that there was something unique about me that I like to say I'm kind of like a sociopath in that with embarrassment, even when I was little, it's not that I like it. I just like don't feel it. It takes so much me to get embarrassed. I think my dad is really funny to always try to embarrass me. And I just thought he was funny. I would go on the court and be so nervous to serve. I would serve underhand when I was playing an international tournament, and I was
Is that bad?
Yeah. Serving underhand is basically like worse than a beginner.
Okay.
But it was like all I felt I could do at that moment. So I've embarrassed myself in so many ways. So I'm kind of numb to it, and I feel like because of that in me, which is such a weird, people are like, I want to be funny or beautiful. I'm like, I don't get embarrassed. So let's use that skill to like put myself out there. And that's where I saw, going back to reality TV, when we were casting, I'm not supposed to talk about casting, but I don't give a fuck. They were like, I was telling them about myself, and I said, I've gone through depression, anxiety. I feel like women have to be shown being funny and like in roles of power, like producers or comedians. And I'm athletic. I played sports, and I'm like, that's me. And if you don't want that, that's okay. But if you want me, like, that's all I'm going to be. And they were like, yeah, that's what we want. So they accepted me for me. And then I was like, okay, I have this platform now to like show all of my bullshit. And if I can affect one person in a positive way, that'll be cool. So that's like how I went into the show. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going on a show. I need to start something that I can monetize for myself.
Brilliant.
And that's how I was actually talking to, this is so random, but Teresa Giudice's lawyer is a friend of a friend, and I've like called him for some advice.
And it's not Giudice. I just listened to that episode.
Oh my God. The first time I interviewed her at Betches, I just butchered her last name because I'm Italian. And
I thought it was Giudice too.
I think it's Giudice. Oh wait, no. It's Guidice. Oh fuck. Basically, they say it in an American way, and I tried to say it in the Italian way, and I fucked it up. And she was like, that's not my name. And I was like, oh my God. But then I don't get embarrassed very easily, so I was just laughing it off. Yeah. Now it's like my thing. I just can't pronounce anyone's name. So he was like, look, you gotta find something that like you're really passionate about long term, that's your passion project. Because the show, as a producer, it's very difficult for me to like do my thing and then have no creative control over editing or any of that.
And they're taping you 24/7.
Like I go to sleep with the red dot staring at me filming. Like
that's no control.
No, like I could fart in my sleep and national television has it. And I'm like, cool. You just have to let go.
Yeah.
Which I'm a control like type A person, but that's the world testing you. So long story short, I'd wanted to start a podcast for a while, and I was like, oh, this is the universe door opening. And I started this thing called Burning in Hell. And it's funny, the name literally, I don't even remember thinking of a name. It just came to me. Sometimes that happens with creativity.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I believe it's God whispering in your ear or like your creative angels being like, hey, try this. But that's why, because if you didn't do Burning in Hell, not that someone would have done a podcast called Burning in Hell, but they might have done a podcast with the same concept, because I think like the creative gods pick different people to whisper it in their ear, and whoever is ready is the one that gets to do it.
That is so interesting. I've never thought of it that
Creative
way.
consciousness.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I had wanted to talk, because at Betches, I've been meeting a lot of like weird celebrities, and I always had
How do you define weird celebrities?
Like reality TV or like YouTube stars or like podcast stars or just like random C-B list people who like nowadays anyone can get famous from anything. Like you can like eat ice and do ASMR and you have like millions of followers, but that's a whole nother
we should
podcast.
Do a podcast like that.
And that's the second half of this podcast. I'm eating ice. It's really good. I love this ice. Creative ice. So I decided that people look up to these famous people thinking that like, oh, if I could get fame and money, that'll bring happiness. And I realized that these famous people are most of the time like more fucked up than the average person because they like need that fame or that affirmation, and just how like it's just not like that. And I'm sick of the show off culture of Instagram. And I just was like, I'm going to create a podcast that I can like talk to people about the stuff they're embarrassed about, the stuff that they hate about themselves, the stuff that gets them anxious, their fears, what keeps them up at night, and then how they cope with it. But I wanted to get people that people look up to, you know, because they actually, like I learned like Ryan Serhant,
I love him,
who is a psychopath, but everyone looks up to him because he's an incredible salesperson.
He's a great on-air guest.
On-air guest. But he basically was like, if I'm not selling, I want to kill myself. And I'm like, oh, that's how you have that drive. Like, people are way more complex than just being like, oh, that guy got lucky. He got on a TV show. So I just feel like I just am fascinated with people's minds. And because I'm so vulnerable with myself, I believe that I have a way of like connecting, getting people to be vulnerable with themselves. And it's this weird mix of like, I'm good at getting people to open up and I'm good at talking about my own shit. And it's been this incredible journey, but that started to pop off before the show. Because I don't want people to think that, like, I just did it to get money from the show. Because, like, let's be honest, podcast is not, like, I'm not there yet where I'm making money. I started it so I would be, like, pretty, like, official before the show aired. Mm-hmm. And then I got fired from Betches. Right? Kind of when stuff was going really well. Like, my podcast was doing really well on the side. I had filmed Summer House already. And my Instagram started to do well because my Twitter started to blow up. These are all before Summer House. This was just like me being so authentically myself and the universe being like, yeah, girl, yeah, keep going. And these are things that like I had no goals. Like I never once was like, I want to go viral on Twitter or like, I want to hit this many followers. Where tennis, I was always like, I want this ranking. I want to beat that girl. Where in this field, I literally was just obsessed with the quality of my work. I was obsessed with the journey, and all I wanted to do was make people laugh. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I just knew that every morning I was going to try to create something. And it's crazy that when you get in that purely like non-result oriented state, the results come and go, and you never get too high or low from it because you're so into creating and having fun. Like this is what brings me happiness, this moment with you, like talking. And I think that's why results will come and go, and you can never control results. You really can't.
I know. It's so true. I mean, I've been having a hard time with that lately, and I got a lot of inspiration from one of the podcasts of yours that I listened to because you were talking about being on the charts. And you're like, I'm on the charts now, but if I'm not, fine. It's going to be okay. I'm going to keep doing this podcast because I love it. And I can be there about like 60% of the time, but I was on the charts for like 2 weeks, and all I could think about was what's going to happen if and when it goes away. It was like that first moment of pure joy, crying like, thank you so much. I can't believe this is happening. And then it went straight to anxiety. So,
it's like when something good happens, you immediately are like, oh, but what if this is bad?
Yeah. How are you like a Buddha now? Tell me
so funny.
Tell me your way.
Someone was talking to me about tweets. Like, do you ever take down a tweet that doesn't do well? And I'm like, no. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because if I think it's funny, it's funny.
Yeah.
And I don't care if other people don't think it's funny because it's me. But it's because I had to fight these things. Like I used to never post like any Insta stories, or I didn't like posting photos of myself. I just didn't want to be put out there and judged of like how I looked and stuff. I just didn't care about that. And now I like do the most ridiculous things. I've almost like gone from like, oh, this scares me. And then I literally put myself on reality TV, just like full frontal, everything out there. So it's almost like you gotta just like literally let go. With my podcast and the charting, it's kind of like, as long as I'm still proud of it, I don't care, because deep down I know that like it will do well. And I think it's also because I know I do have some marketing around me, and like I have a plan with it. I'm not just like throwing at the wall and praying. It's like I know that like if I'm myself on Summer House and I work really hard on my podcast and I continue working hard on Instagram and I keep putting 100% into all of it, I like know that it's going to go in a good direction, but also like I don't know what that direction is, and I don't give a fuck about charting. I just don't. Like, who cares? I just don't care. But I know that I'm getting ratings. I like that. I like people being engaged, and like I just feel like, but also it's my ego's not attached to it.
Yeah,
that's why. It's
so do you think you got to that through therapy, or was it really just going toward who you are?
I did do therapy after my breakup. My breakup shook me because it was basically, I hadn't dealt with my tennis issues. So what came through him again, like the universe was like, you didn't solve those issues, so we're going to put it in a human form and try to ruin your life. And I basically, like, my therapist was always like, but why do you feel so much pressure to be so like successful? Why do you feel so much pressure to be so good at everything? And it took me being, you know what, I'm going to answer your question right now. I'm like, and now we're going to answer the question after mumbling for 40 minutes. When you hit rock bottom and you're depressed and anxious and like can't eat because you're so disturbed and like your stomach is in knots and you feel lost, I thought I convinced myself I lost myself. Like I had this thought that like I wasn't myself, and I would talk to people and be like, did I act like myself? Like I was in a psycho mode. Once I recovered from that, which was just like time and like breaking up with him and being in a healthy place again, I don't give a fuck about anything but being happy. I just want to wake up, not have an annoying boss, not have a toxic boyfriend, not have pressure to do things I don't want to do. I literally just want to have my cat, my studio apartment, money coming in that I can eat, good people around me, and doing what I love. And once you like really are grateful just for that, the rest, like, your life is 90% just like contentment and like the daily bullshit. And then like 5% is really, really, really happy events, and like 5% is really upsetting, sad stuff. So it's finding that like calmness of in between, that you're just functioning instead of like waiting for the next high to bring you happiness. It's
That's
like
great.
It's sad, but it's like I literally had to get that dark, but it's also like I was facing my shit. Like I wasn't ignoring it. I was like, I'm fucked up right now. But I also never stopped getting out of bed. Like I was still going to work when it was like 6 months of like scary depression.
Yeah, and I think that there's something so powerful in what you said where you were facing yourself, because there's like all this I produce the Goop podcast.
Yes. And Girl Boss.
And Girl Boss, yeah.
Very impressive.
Thank you, girl. But there's a part, there's one episode I produced where this guy, Barry Michaels, came on. He talked about the personal shadow. And that's basically everything in life we feel ashamed of, everything in life that we've repressed or we haven't dealt with. And it becomes almost like this separate person that we dissociate from. But only when you face your personal shadow can you really be your true self, reduce fear or kind of get rid of it, and go toward your truth.
I love that so much. I was listening to this other podcast where this guy does numerology, and I was like, I don't really understand it, but I wanted to learn about it. And he was like, your life is like a computer, like zeros and ones, where you have patterns that you learn in childhood, and you find yourself once you can unlearn those patterns. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And that's what creativity is. Once you can unlearn like what society and people tell you how you should think and how you should be, then you find your authenticness. And like I had to unlearn that, you know, the world was a scary place, that like I can't mess up or people will freak out.
So I'm really curious because your dad was your tennis coach for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know he's very intense, I'll just say.
Oh, yeah.
From the way you've described it, he is very results oriented, and it seemed like put a lot of pressure on you.
I think he lived vicariously through me.
Did
like
he want to be a tennis star? Or
he always wanted to be like a basketball player, and his
Uh-huh.
dad was a basketball coach who didn't coach him. Like he had his own team. And my dad, I felt like, was impressing my grandpa by like having this daughter that was such a great athlete.
And in a way trying to give you what he didn't have.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
like when I'd win, he would get so happy. Like I remember us jumping around in the parking lot. I remember my first time I won a tournament, how much he smiled. And I immediately was like, Dad's happy when I win. But then when I lost, he would be so passionate because he'd be like mad at himself. But also my dad has a side to him. My dad's the funniest person in the world. Like he can light up any room. He had this silly fun side that's like my best friend. And then he had this like scary coach side. So it was like hard for me as a kid sometimes to understand like what was unconditional and what was just based on like, is Hannah winning or not? So that fucked me up.
So as you've gotten older and gone toward your truth and gotten rid of those like early childhood programmings, how has your relationship with him changed, and how do you think it's influenced him and the rest of your family?
That's such a great question because everyone has daddy issues, but daddy issues are so much more complex than like the media makes it look. Like I'm not just like, I'm daddy's girl, he doesn't want me to have sex. Like my dad just I realized that like this last like bit of depression, I had to do some serious talking to my dad. Like even though we'd solved it and he'd apologized for like he regretted some of the things he'd done, I literally still had to look at him and be like, I'm still messed up though. Like I'm still messed up, and like I needed to talk and talk and talk with this man for him to literally look at me and be like, you are perfect being my daughter, whatever the hell you do. And like I needed, even though like we'd moved on, I needed to hear that from him like multiple times. But like put in the work with those people in your life. And because I knew it deep down, but I almost just need him to know my pain. Like I already knew that he like regretted it and like loves me, but I needed him to know like how hurt and scared I was. And once I think he saw that, I felt like seen and understood. And like we have such an amazing relationship now. And he's also like, my parents have zero involvement in this thing I'm doing. I even said to my mom, we're in LA right now. And I was like, isn't this more fun than tennis? And she just started laughing because we just did a TV spot at KTLA. And like, I had no nerves. I just was myself. I didn't ask afterwards, how'd I do? It just kind of was like, we're celebrating life. And the fact that I now have this platform means like I want to do stuff like this where I can talk about the hardships I've gone through. Because sometimes when you're in it, if you told me that I'd be on a TV show in 2 years when I'm sitting in Vegas miserable, I would be like, that's a joke. But the world is just controlled by how creative your mind can be. Like, if you can think it, you can do it. And like, I honestly believe that wholeheartedly. And if you think it from your own authentic voice, not someone else's, it's what you're meant to do.
So I want to circle back to your path in leaving Betches. It's really hard, and I've definitely been in this position before where you've got your like side hustle that's really your front hustle and your heart, and you started growing as a talent, and sometimes that isn't well received by a company you work for because it might not be in what they think is like their best interest for you to grow and succeed. So I'm curious, for people who are in a situation like that, what your advice would be to them on how to get through that and be honest with themselves.
It's funny because Betches was my dream job. Like, I'd walk in and be like, could anything be more fun than me like writing funny scripts and filming them? And they gave me so much freedom. They were doing really well, but like nothing stays the same. And once these other opportunities came, like things got more complicated. And I just never liked being in a box. And I felt like I'd hit a limit of like the opportunities that I was getting there. And it seemed like if you're not getting more money to put in more time at a company and your time is better spent doing things that help you grow, then you have to grow. And I also early on from sales, I think, learned that like money really doesn't make me happy. And I know that I know how much money I need to sustain myself and be healthy. And then I'm like, I just need happiness to fulfill the rest. So I had a turning point where I was like, just because this is your dream job does not mean it's your dream job forever. And you're going to grow. Things are going to change, and that's a good thing. And don't be afraid of change. And also realize when you're not learning anymore at a company. Realize when you're hit that glass ceiling. And it's not always their fault. It's just like stuff changes.
Very true. And I think, too, it's like you can get trapped in your dreams. Like, what if you had gotten trapped in the dream of tennis just because that's what you're...
I was trapped in the dream. When I was 5 years old, I said I want to be a professional tennis player. And at like 18, I still had that little girl's voice that I didn't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
Where I think with Betches and I don't have a dream right now. Like right now, people are like, oh, what are you trying to do? Like, I literally don't know. And I'm not lost. I just know that I'm just going to keep growing.
I think your dream that you're pursuing right now is being yourself full time.
You hit the fucking nail on the head. And I think that isn't that what happiness is? And I think that everyone's selves are different. That's why the world is full of so many complex, beautiful, creative things happening. I think that 5-year plans are like restrictive.
They are. And I think it's interesting, too, because people are like, be specific about what you want to manifest. You need to write it down. You need to read it.
Yeah.
But for you, it's like you've clearly manifested a lot.
Yeah.
But your overarching goal, your overarching purpose is to be yourself and to make people laugh and put out good content.
I mean, I was manifesting video. I didn't know that I was going to fall in love with radio. I loved that you could just walk in with no makeup and talk shit. And people like, you didn't have to memorize stuff. You didn't have to write a script. You could just be and like find different people you connected with. So like your manifestation is a great starting point. But like the universe is bigger than your thoughts. So like it's true. Like you have to keep your thoughts open if you want to like see how far you can go. I mean, even right now, if you're manifesting something, your dream job is probably not even invented in 2 years. Like, even, like, how you started, like, your music consulting company type thing, like, that's something that, like, people didn't even think about before. It's something probably through different connections and meeting people and opportunities, you realized there was a need, that it needed to be filled. So it's like, you can't even think some of the things you're going to do. You just have to keep going.
Very true. So relationships, like I know you're in a relationship with yourself right now. There's something so beautiful that you talked about on your podcast where you said, I woke up and I held my own hand.
Oh my gosh.
Which like it actually made me cry when you said that. I want to hold my hand.
It was just like crazy moment that I felt like, you know, you're always trying to find someone to like understand you and be there for you. And you're like, oh wait, I literally have myself.
Yeah.
Like waking up and saying hi to yourself and not being afraid of your mind. And like, I was afraid of my mind for so long because my mind would fuck with me so much. So this day that I was just like, I didn't like solve anything. I just unlearned a ton of things. And I always think your most creative, beautiful, pure self is like when you were 8, 9 years old and like trying to be in that place again. Do you remember just like walking around and the world was so simple and beautiful?
Yes.
That's actually where you want to be again. And that's when you're your most creative and open and like vulnerable.
It's true. It's all about the inner child. And I heard something great was write down everything you want in a partner and then become that person.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I feel like that's what you're doing.
And that's also like feels like home because you're creating a space that like you're both similar in like your values and what you want and who you are. I also obviously as a tennis player who's competitive and liked winning and trophies, I would treat guys like medals. Like I would just want guys for my ego to show off. Like I wanted tall guys or athletes. And it was so fucked up because I would become obsessed with like winning guys over until finally I won the wrong guy over who fucked me up.
Yeah, I was going to ask you though, like in moving forward, when you do decide to start pursuing a relationship, are you going to look for a fellow creative? What are the dangers in that and how will you protect yourself from potential competition?
That's a great question. I think it's really like when you're listening to your voices, you'll see the red flags easier. And I think it's like when you have a goal, again, goals fuck you up. If you have a goal to get a boyfriend, you will like think things, you'll project things and do whatever you want to make it work. But I think right now I'm in this place where I don't have any goals, so I'm not going to force anyone to work for me. And instead, like, it's either going to fall in my lap or not. And I'm in a place like I'm starting to talk to someone who's actually kind of creative and he's like really calming and he's nice. And I used to go for like loud party boys who were similar to me and then we would just butt heads. So, but I'm not forcing anything because I have so much trust in the universe right now. I'm like, what I always like to say in relationships and I think careers is like, if it's meant to be, you can't fuck it up. If your intentions are right, as long as you're not trying to murder them or cheat on them, I think that you can't fuck it up. So no, I'm like, I could literally like ignore this dude for months and I think it'll still work out if he's right for me.
You're absolutely right. It's like what's meant for you will never miss you.
Yes, exactly. And I think I spent so long, even with tennis, I would hold the racket really tight and I would try really hard. And they say like to actually play your best, you have to hold the racket like an egg, like not too tight that you'd break it. I'm giving you guys some tennis tips right now.
Solid
but
gold.
It's like, and then to swing, you have to be loose. Your hand has to be like spaghetti to actually get power.
A lot of food metaphors.
It's a lot of Italian metaphors. So it's like, the less effort you put in, the better the result, which like I couldn't fathom on the court because I wanted to win so hard. But that's also with life. The more you force and push, kind of sometimes the universe fights back. So it's like sometimes just like let it go. And it's easier said than done, but like trying too hard sometimes means there's an issue.
You talk a lot about anxiety and depression on your podcast, in your life in general. You're really open about it. And I really appreciate that you're opening up the discussion because it's an epidemic and especially creative people, we're all struggling.
Well, creative people have abnormal brains.
Yeah, we do.
And it makes us beautiful, but also makes us complex.
Yes. So for people who are dealing with depression and anxiety, what's your advice for them on how to get through it?
It's not identifying with the voices. I think that's like the number one thing. I didn't understand what the voices were.
There's so many voices.
There's so many voices, but you have to really understand which ones are your grumpy roommate and which ones are actually you. And once you're not scared of your brain, like once you don't let your mind master you, be the master of your own mind.
Shoot.
That's like the quote I want to like emphasize for anxiety and depression. Because anxiety and depression is just you having a certain perspective. And if you can control your perspective on things, it's literally, you see all those, like life is so much just perspective. And even with creativity, like feeling like I can't think of anything. That's just you in your own head having a weird perspective right now. Change your, where you're working, change who you're dating, change things around to change your perspective and nothing stays the same. Like your depression right now will not feel the same as it feels tomorrow or the next month or the next month. I knew my depression was going to end and I just kept telling myself like, this isn't you and this isn't you forever. This isn't you forever. Keep going. And then one day you stop trying to overcome it and it just goes away.
That's such a good thing to remember. In any situation in life, good or bad, this isn't you forever. you know?
And if you keep thinking about something, it really just puts the energy to it. So like if I was obsessing about my depression, like it wasn't going to leave. It literally left one day when I had just like got distracted and was like, I kept working. And like finally other things started to take over my life and I stopped. It's like if you have like a food eating disorder, all your energy is going towards food. And then one day your energy, whether it's a different anxiety or something positive, it gets away from that thought. It's just the perspective of like you could walk every day being like, I could get hit by a car. Imagine if you thought about that all the time. You could. And you shouldn't, but that's a perspective of life. So it's like literally just telling the story you want in your head is the manifestation of like positivity.
It's true. And I mean, even if you do get hit by a car, you could survive. It happened to me.
It happened to me too. I got hit by a car. God, it makes you stronger and it's a really good party story.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, I don't want to get hit by a car. I'm like, well, I've done it.
I've done it and you should see that car.
And I'm glad you said that about the eating disorder too, because it's like, that's something I also struggle with. I just listened to an interview you did with the ballerina. Her name was
Katie Boren.
Katie Boren. And it's like,
I had to address like ballerinas and eating.
I wanted
just
her to get into it a little bit more, but it seemed like she was a little...
It was our first time meeting, which is sometimes you could tell in my, like most of my interviews are with people I know for a while and I'm like, let's dig deep. I had to ask her the question.
Right.
And she kind of was like, everyone has some form of disordered eating. And I'm like,
no, but it's true. And it's like, that's something I used to make myself throw up when I was little. And then I did extreme calorie deprivation. And I think it's anytime you have like an addictive behavior in your life, it's taking you away from your creativity. It's like, let's distract you with this. But what would happen if you redirected that energy, just like you said?
Exactly. It's like my tennis. I put all my anxiety into like my forehand, or you putting all your anxiety into the food. It's other issues. It's like alcoholism. They're suppressing a bigger issue. And I think that if you understand and you don't identify with like being bulimic or like being anorexic or having performance anxiety, don't identify with it. Like it's something your brain's doing, but you're so much bigger than that. And everyone has it. Like the second episode you should listen to, Jessie Jolles is an incredible comedian. She talks about her bulimia.
Oh yeah, I listened to it.
And I decided in the title that I wanted to put the word bulimia in it because nobody talks about it. And I'm 27 years old. I probably know about 20 friends that have it.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's something that's done in secret. Like my parents didn't know about it. My friends didn't know about it. It was something that I just did. And my parents didn't know until years later when I told them. The only reason I stopped was because I was a singer. I still am. And my dad said Karen Carpenter died of this and ruined her voice. I stopped dead on. I mean, creativity pulled me out of it.
Wow.
Literally.
But Jessie also said the secret made it bigger. And I think when you're going through something, if you keep it a secret, you're putting energy towards that secret of hiding that secret. Once you tell people about it, the secret's gone and the energy that you're putting towards it is gone.
It doesn't own you.
It doesn't own you anymore and you're not ashamed of it and you're not aligning with it. Instead, it's just a thing that you're experiencing that you're telling someone about. So guys, talk about it. Talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
That's right. That's what we're doing here. I could literally talk to you forever, but I know you've got places to be. You're a star.
Oh, stop.
I'm just so proud of you. I mean, I feel like I've watched your journey because I started listening to you on Taylor's show like a year ago. And I've just seen you rise.
Been so weird.
And no, it's not been weird. It's been you finally stepping into who you are. And I'm just like, I'm ecstatic. I look up to you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I'm thrilled for you. And I know that it's just going to continue because you're in the right headspace and you're a great example for all of us.
Thank you.
So I have two final questions.
Okay.
You talked about the inner child. I think creativity is directly linked to the inner child.
Yes.
And I think about my inner child a lot. And so I'm wondering if your little Hannah was standing in front of you right now.
Stop, you're making me cry.
And she was looking at you and looking at everything you're doing, everything you've done, what you've done to take care of her. What would she say to you and why?
I think she would just like be so happy we're having fun. She'd be like, let's play together. Like, she would be like, okay, we have to do a sketch. And she'd be like, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. Like, she would love that I'm still fun. Because so many moments when you're an adult, you're like, who am I? This like boring, mean creature. And I think that she'd look at me and be like, you're my best friend.
And what would you say to her and why?
I would say, you're good just the way you are. And anyone that makes you feel like things are wrong, things are wrong. You're right.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you so much for listening, and to my guest, Hannah Berner. You can listen to Hannah's podcast, Burning in Hell, which I highly recommend, on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, or wherever good podcasts are found. You can see her on Summer House Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Bravo, and follow her on Instagram and Twitter at Being Burns. That's at BeingBernz. Thanks to Liz Full for the show's original music. Follow her at Liz Full. Thanks to Juliette Weber for her social media and production help. Follow her at Bonjour Juliette. And thank you for another great week. Follow Unleash Your Inner Creative on Instagram and Facebook, at You Are Creative on Twitter, and you can join our Facebook community by searching Unleash Creative Community. You can follow me at Lauren LoGrasso everywhere. When I think about it, my takeaway from today is that if your soul is being called to a certain path, the call is enough. And the purer your intentions are, the more success you'll have. But it's only when you're really committed to the present moment that you'll find contentment. My wish for all of us this week, myself included, is that we can be a little bit more like Hannah, that we're able to give up everything in order to pursue our happiness, and that we can make our number one goal being ourselves and doing great work that we're proud of. I believe in us. I'll talk with you next Tuesday. Love you.